Hello, everybody. Chip Paul for Chip Talks Podcast. So I've got on my hairnet today because I'm in the lab today. So we're working on some things. So apologies for looking a little goofy. But today we're going to talk about cannabinoids and terpenes. So it's really time. We've talked about this for a lot in the past, let's say, and I've done a ton of classes. Bud tender classes and endocannabinoid training classes on it looks a little too goofy, I'm taking it off, but I've done all of these classes, right, on cannabinoids and terpenes and all different types of ways that you can, let's say, impact the endocannabinoid system or look at cannabis as a plant. So I'm going to start back over kind of from square one here and really dial up what cannabis is and what cannabis is, let's say, associated with our endocannabinoid system. So let's talk about that first. So what is cannabis and how is it associated with our endocannabinoid system? Well, the endocannabinoid system is an internal system that we have that really anything with a spine has. Okay. So it is a system that's common to us. It's like our endorphin system or our dopamine system or serotonin system or opiate system. So we have this other system called the endocannabinoid system. And not only us, but almost all life on the planet. So anything with a spine will have an endocannabinoid system, and it will be somewhat common, in that thing versus us. And so endocannabinoid system common to most life on the planet, so lots of things have an endocannabinoid system. Now, cannabis, because of the things in it that we're going to talk about, is a very good modulator of the endocannabinoid system. And as such, that's why the system was kind of named after cannabis. All right. But we need to kind of break those two things apart in your mind, because right now, a lot of you guys think that, well, the only way to impact the endocannabinoid system is with cannabis. No, that's not true. That's not true at all. In fact, I wrote a patent around other natural products that will impact the endocannabinoid system in 2017, right? So it's we've known about this stuff for a long time, that there's other things that impact the endocannabinoid system. There's lots. In fact, lots of things in nature will impact the system. Okay. But today we're going to talk about cannabis, and we will be talking about how cannabis impacts the endocannabinoid system, because that's a pretty important discussion. And there's really nothing that impacts that system more. It's really interesting when you look at hemp as a food. So if you just let's say I'm going to grow my marijuana, but I'm just going to eat it. I'm going to eat it in salads or, basically eat the leaves of the marijuana plant. Take the hemp oil, from the marijuana plant. Where you're looking at very, very, and again, if you have to go to the seeds, really. So hemp seeds. But hemp seeds are almost a complete food. They are very naturally balanced in the fats that we need, in particular omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. They also have some saturated fat and monounsaturated fat, and they're heavier in monounsaturated fat, which is what you want to see. They've got some nice amino acids, in them, hemp seeds. And so hemp represents almost a perfect food. It's almost a perfect oil, to put on our skin because of the acidity and kind of the amino acid balance. So there's some really, really cool things about cannabis. It's almost like a teacher. It's almost like stands between us and nature and says, come on in, learn about me, because I'm going to teach you about a whole lot of other stuff in nature. So it's a cool plant. It's a very robust plant, and it does a whole lot of things medicinally. But let's talk about kind of how that works, right? So what are the things in cannabis that will affect me pharmacologically or medicinally? Well, first of all, we all kind of know about the cannabinoids, don't we? Right? So there's lots of cannabinoids that are in cannabis, and all of these cannabinoids. So THC is a cannabinoid, CBD is a cannabinoid, CBN is a cannabinoid, CBG is a cannabinoid. So these are all cannabinoids that exist in the cannabis plant, that the plant is using to do things, to defend itself, to protect itself, to build more of an immune system, to do stuff like that, right? So the cannabinoids really exist for the cannabis plant to help defend itself and to help kind of manage its system. It has a kind of an endocannabinoid system, if you will, as well. And cannabinoids are very unique to the cannabis plant, but they're a very important part of how the cannabis plant functions and protects itself. So, like if I put a cannabis plant under stress, then it's going to produce more THC. If I, hit it with jasmodic acid, you're going to have more of a THC expression. If I, don't stress that plant out so much, it's going to be more of a, cannabidiol producer. So cannabis starts everything on the cannabinoid side starts with a molecule called CBG. And then other cannabinoids are broken down from CBG. And it would be similar to a system you have inside of you called cholesterol. And again, cholesterol is sort of the thing that we make. And then lots of hormones and steroids, in fact, all your hormones and steroids are broken down from cholesterol. So in a similar way, cannabis has CBG, starts with him. And based on environment, immune system, all kinds of stuff, he will break that CBG down into other cannabinoids that do other things for that plant. Once we understand what those other things are, but a lot of it has to do with immune, it has to do with how that plant's dealing with its environment. It might have to do with water status, a lot of different stuff, sun status. But once we really figure out how that breakdown works, we can, again, you can environmentally stress a plant and get, interesting results, right? And we don't have that completely figured out yet. But what we are beginning to figure out is the pharmacological profiles of all of these cannabinoids. So like CBG is a really good, antibacterial, antifungal, anti. It works very good on, as a topical against like, MRSA and some of these horrible, antibiotic resistant bacteria that we hear about. No, the plants have it all figured out. There is no antibiotic resistant bacteria in the plant world. So we can use that information, and that's what we're doing. So again, CBG, very antibacterial, antimicrobial, anti. THC has other nice functions inside of us. CBD has nice functions inside of us. So all of these cannabinoids break down into things that are very, very useful if we understand kind of what they do. The coolest thing, though, I think, so cannabinoids are cool, but, I've kind of known about those since I was, 14 and kind of first lit up, right? So I do about cannabinoids at 14 years old. What I didn't know about, though, was terpenes. And terpenes are really, really cool. So let me kind of walk you guys through what terpenes are and kind of how terpenes work, because this is the other side, the medicinal side of cannabis. And if you're really wanting to, well, I'll give you this from a bud tender perspective. Okay. So you come in and you talk to a bud tender and you go, man, I'm in a lot of pain. I need something very specific for my pain. And that bud tender is going to go through his rationale and he's going to go, okay, well, I know about the cannabinoids and yeah, CBD, CBDA, those are pretty good for pain. So that's likely kind of where I'm going to go. But those are good for kind of global stuff, right? So CBDs will generally help you, with inflammation. They'll help your immune system in kind of a general way, but they're not going to attack pain like right away, right? Like some terpenes will. So it's useful if and again, what attacks pain right away? Eugenol is a terpene, but if you're looking for more specifics, so cannabis kind of helps this general endocannabinoid system, and the cannabinoids kind of help support our endocannabinoid system. But if you want to get very specific into specific action, like I'm going to attack autism, or I'm going to attack pain, or I'm going to attack rheumatoid arthritis, or I'm going to attack pathogens and how pathogens infect us. So you're going to have to go to the terpenes if you're using cannabis. THC will kind of generally help, CBD will generally help, but they don't have the specific action. So hopefully that's making sense. And we want stuff with specific action. So a lot of this stuff you can look up online. So we're not going to go through every single terpene. I'm just going to go through the general idea of terpenes. But first of all, let me just kind of read you some of this stuff. So terpenes are a class of natural products. Okay, they occur in more than just cannabis. It doesn't say terpenes are things that only occur in the cannabis plant. No, they're a class of natural products consisting of compounds with the formula C5H8 N for N greater than 2. Terpenes are major biosynthetic building blocks comprising more than 30,000 compounds These unsaturated hydrocarbons are produced predominantly by plants, particularly conifers. So pine trees, right? But cannabis, it turns out, it produces these like crazy. In plants, terpenes and terpenoids are important mediators of ecological interactions. While some insects use some terpenes as a form of defense, other functions of terpenoids include cell growth modulation, plant elongation, light harvesting, photoprotection, and membrane permeability and fluid control. So, like steroids and hormones, plants use these things. Again, they're using terpenes for fine motor control, to control growth, to control light modulation, to control, immune defense and all that. And guess what? If it works for a plant, it'll work for us, provided we can safely ingest it or put it on our skin. This is kind of cool, but rubber is a terpene. So I didn't know that before I read this. So it's this polyisoprene is natural rubber. And terpenes are really formed by something called isoprene. So isoprene rings, and they kind of look like these guys over here. So those are some isoprene rings. If you just go to the wiki here, it's pretty good, information on kind of what a terpene is. The biological functions, though, so terpenes are major biosynthetic building blocks. Steroids, for example, are derivatives of the triterpene squalene. So you have terpenes that you make from cholesterol. That's what this is saying. Like steroids are basically terpenes inside of you. Terpenes and terpenoids are also primary constituents of the essential oils of many types of plants and flowers. That's true. In plants, terpenes and terpenoids are important mediators of ecological interactions. For example, they play a role in plant defense against herbivory, disease resistance, attraction of mutualists, such as pollinators, as well as potential plant-plant communication. They appear to play roles as anti-feedants. Other functions of terpenoids include cell growth modulation and plant elongation, light harvesting and photoprotection, and membrane permeability and fluid control. So they're kind of signalers, right? Which is kind of cool. All right, so I hate reading stuff to you guys. I know probably you hate it too. So let's learn something, right? So let's go to a terpene called limonene. And limonene and beta caryophyllene are probably the two most prevalent terpenes in cannabis. So if we learn about beta caryophyllene and limonene, we really can't go wrong as we're learning about things. But again, if I'm a bud tender, this is great information to have, because I kind of need this. I'm really, really, really going to try to, help people with their ass when they come in with, pain relief or anti-inflammatory. So, I just asked Google a question, is limonene anti-inflammatory? And, I already knew the answer, but I wanted to kind of see what it pulled up. So, the Google answer box here has, yes, limonene has anti-inflammatory properties. Limonene is a monoterpene found in citrus fruits. So again, it's not just found in cannabis, boys and girls. It is found in other places that may help reduce chronic inflammation in the body. All right, that's pretty good. Now, specifically, what does it do? And again, you can go pull these studies if you want and, read about them. This is what I do every single day, is read these studies really for you to help you understand kind of what's going on here, because it's important. It's important to your health. It's important to our future. Limonene demonstrated anti-inflammatory effects by reducing pro-inflammatory cytokines, TNF alpha. That's a really important one that you want to reduce. Believe me, IL-1B, that's another one. So those two are involved in cancer and a lot of other, signaling things that you don't want. COX-2 is directly involved in pain. Okay. So, ibuprofen, Tylenol, a lot of the over-the-counter, let's say pain relievers, are COX-2 effectors, right? And so limonene is also affecting that same pathway, and by virtue would have some pain relief. It may not be the best COX-2 effector, let's say the terpene profile, but it is a COX-2 effector. So that's good for pain. TLR4 is a super important pathway. So if you go back and watch some of my videos I've been doing recently talking about the endocannabinoid system, the endocannabinoid system is kind of, it certainly can be excitatory, but it's almost like our inhibitory, the thing that pulls our reactions back. So we want to react to things, right? We want to react to fight or flight. We want to react to a pain response, touching a hot stove. So you're kind of built to react, right? What brings you back is the endocannabinoid system. What sets a state of the tweakiness of your reaction is your omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acid consumption, believe it or not. But anyway, TLR4 is like this real sensitive little receptor out there that if I touch him and you're wound too tight, you're going to go blammy with all this inflammation. So if I can calm TLR4 down, that's what berberine does. That's what eugenol does. So there's a lot of stuff that will also calm TLR4 down, but that's a super duper important thing. If I want to help you with pain and I want to help you with inflammation, I want to approach COX-2 and I want to approach TLR4. And guess what? Limonene does both those two things. We can also let's look at another one just for fun, because I know there'll be a lot of stuff on him. And that's pinene. And pinene is, again, conifers and all that. So pinene is one of the ones that cannabis also wants to produce, and pinene has some super nice properties. But let me just kind of read you these, and I didn't even know what we come up with, so it's pretty cool. Pinene has anti-inflammatory properties. Now, all of these guys, again, what's wrong with us? We have an inflammatory reaction. We have to dial back, right? So most of these guys are going to have anti-inflammatory properties, but has also been shown to protect against oxidative stress. Now, again, when you study disease and you study the core of all disease, let's say, never good to say all, always generalize, but most disease is going to be caused by oxidative stress. Looks like pinene also helps with neuron damage and inflammation inside your body. Alpha pinene, a monoterpene found in the oils of many coniferous trees, and rosemary has been shown to suppress the NF-kappa beta pathway and MAPKSs. That's an inflammatory pathway. One study found that alpha pinene reduced inflammation associated with acute pancreatitis. What? Pancreatitis? It'll help with pancreatitis? Yeah. So this is how you get more specific. I didn't know what we'd pull up here, but this is kind of interesting. By downregulating IL-6, IL-1B, and TNF-alpha. So again, you're going to see in a lot of mitigating disease stuff, TNF-alpha, IL-1B, IL-6, NF-kB. You're going to see a lot of these words because they're involved in kind of how you mitigate disease, how you deal with inflammation. Let's see what else we got here. Neuronal damage. So that's kind of interesting. Alpha pinene can also be used as a jet fuel, which I found that was kind of interesting. It is flammable, but it's good for you. So pretty cool stuff. So anyway, wanted to do, and we'll continue to do this. We'll continue to do deep dives on, cannabinoids, and we'll do specific cannabinoids and also specific terpenes, provided you guys think that this is useful. So if you think this is useful, then, subscribe and like and forward it around and, say so in the comments. If you don't think this is useful, then we'll go in another path. So we can always do, deep dives, let's say on science into the endocannabinoid system. And we'll do that. We've done lots of that. You can go out and find those on podcasts. But what I want to do is kind of dial it back a little bit. And we'll kind of start over, what is the endocannabinoid system? Kind of how does it work? How do we impact it? How can we impact it with nature? How does cannabis impact it? All that kind of stuff. So anyway, we'll leave it there for today. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.